This is On and Off Your Mat podcast, episode 1. My name is Erica and I'm your host, and I'm beyond excited to launch this podcast and have you join us for our very first episode. I sat down with 3 other teachers. I wanted to introduce the podcast and have a casual conversation about yoga, what it means to them, how it's defined in literature, and how it's seen by their students. You'll see Jenna, Monique, and Cara, they complemented each other very well, and they were offering different point of views. So take a listen, and I hope you enjoy.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us on.
So let's start by going around the table before we dig into our subject of the day. Say your name, say what you teach, or what style, what crowds you teach to, so we get to know you a little better.
My name is Jenna, and I teach in the California East Bay, Northern California. I teach kids yoga, family yoga, Hatha, Vinyasa, and also a different style of class, which is more like a workout style class called TRX.
My name's Monique, and I teach in the North Bay, in the Bay Area, and a little bit in San Francisco. And primarily, the approach that I teach is called inner yoga, and there are different modalities within that. But just to speak briefly about it, primarily it's yin yoga, which is a passive form of yoga, but the whole approach is really therapeutic. So my intention is to hold a really therapeutic space for my students, but it can be anything from yin yoga to mindful flow to, meditation, pranayama.
Awesome.
My name is Cara, and I teach in Maryn County in Northern California. I teach a little bit of everything. I teach Vinyasa and Hatha and kids yoga in schools, and today I'll be talking about paddleboard yoga and aerial yoga, and
Good. And I'm Erica. I teach in Maryn as well, in San Francisco. I do Hatha and Vinyasa, and I've taught to a lot of gym goers, CrossFit athletes. I also teach yoga tune-up fitness, and I've worked with seniors a little bit and with teens as well. So we have a lot of different perspective around the table, which is super interesting. And that will reflect on how we define what is yoga, which is our theme of the day. I think an athlete might not see yoga the same way as a kid would. Do you agree with that?
totally, yeah.
So what would be...
It's all about perspective.
How do kids see yoga?
Well, I think it depends on what they want to get out of it, but a lot of times they just think it's stretching at first, and then when you start to explain the benefits, or if you show them the benefits, take them through a class, you'd be surprised how much they appreciate the calming aspect of it. Most of the time when I ask kids after the fact, like, what was your favorite part? They say that the favorite part is that they feel calm. So I think they come in with one idea and then they leave with another one, which is how most people, how it happens.
I think that's actually very similar with athletes and gym goers, where they think they needed to counterbalance their other activities to make sure they don't get injured, and then they realize, actually, focusing on the breath is really helping me, in the moment in competition, or when it's time for me to lift some super heavy weight, or...
Right. So, some ways it can be a doorway into other possibilities, and especially with kids, I think there's this like innocence and receptivity that kids have that I think as adults we unfortunately lose, and maybe we come in with a particular agenda of what we want to get out of it. And I know you two have worked with teaching yoga to kids more, but I just think of them as really like receptive.
Totally.
I think that in general, though, a lot of people get into yoga for one reason and come out of it with all sorts of other takings.
Definitely.
I saw a review or a study made by Yoga Journal just last year, and they were saying that people go for mainly flexibility, number one. Number two, they go for stress release. And way down the line, there was strength and other things, but it was about flexibility and stress release. Those were their main concerns and why they started yoga, which is interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah, it's just interesting as I'm just thinking about it from like a teaching perspective. When I first started doing yoga, I was doing things really fast and doing really fast vinyasa, and I would have never thought that I would end up teaching a really passive therapeutic form of yoga. And it wasn't until I met my mentor and went to her class that I was like, oh, like I actually really need to be slowing down. I actually really need to be just really, really close to the ground and breathing deeply and meditating.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting that it's not at all what I thought.
I mean, I feel like people tend to gravitate towards things that bring them out of balance at first. Like people who are more, this isn't the right word, but like more type A, or who have a lot going on or have a lot of activity in their life, tend to gravitate towards vinyasa classes.
Or power.
Or power
heated
flow, or yeah. But then eventually I think that maybe people start to come around after the practice starts to bring them more to a place of balance, hopefully. I mean, that doesn't always happen, but...
After the yoga starts working.
They become more open to that.
Yeah.
What they're actually needing.
Yeah, it just depends.
So one of the questions I wanted to go into is when we tell people that we do yoga or we teach yoga, it's kind of a vague term nowadays. It encompasses a lot of different things we see around the table, everything that can include. So I'm curious to see what are the follow-up questions that people ask you when you say I teach yoga or I practice yoga. What's the first thing people are curious about?
Well, what kind of yoga do you teach? That's the very first question, I feel like.
Do they know, if you start naming things, do they know the different styles in general?
Usually, like, maybe one or two, like vinyasa is very popular, or power yoga. But once you start getting into restorative or, I mean, even aerial or, all these other kind of offshoots, they don't know.
Yeah, I think there's an assumption. This is such a general statement, but I think just in the general population of people, it's like vinyasa is very popular. And so it might even be that assumption of like, oh, yeah, you teach vinyasa? No, not really. Yeah. And then if there's a curiosity of what I actually teach, I might share more. But I think, like you were saying, it depends. Like, what are they wanting? What are they wanting to know about yoga?
Yeah.
Do people ever ask you how challenging your class is, or to that level? Like, how close is it to fitness?
Yeah.
Do you get that kind of question?
I think a lot of times people assume that they're not going to be able to do it for a certain reason. Like sometimes people will tell me that they're not flexible enough to take class, but that's why you take classes. Or not, that's not the only reason, obviously, but it'll help to become more flexible. So sometimes people assume that it's not going to work for them, in which case you just encourage them that it might, and then if they show up, then hopefully they like it. It's just, I think it depends on who's asking.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that maybe there's this fear if they've never done it before, that it's this thing they're supposed to be flexible to be able to do it, and they're supposed to be able to do these certain poses, and that's really so far from what yoga really is. And I often talk about it as, I mean, the essence of yoga is just breath and awareness. Like, that is it.
But there is a pressure culturally when you look at yoga to be very strong, very flexible. That's
true.
Idea, Instagram yoga is not real yoga, right? All those circus-like poses that you see that are so impressive.
Well,
covers
of magazines too.
Yeah, of course. You don't have to go very far. So I think people obviously come with that idea. This is yoga. I have to balance on my hand. I have to be able to touch my feet.
Or have to be extremely flexible and be able to get my foot behind my head or something like that. Yeah, it's an issue when it comes to the photography that portrays what yoga is. And some people already think that they know, but you're right. It's just to be more aware. I don't know. I always try to talk to people about just wherever you're at, be there. You don't have to be anything else or do anything different or change anything. But that's always a challenge to get across, too.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done some work with veterans in the past, too, who are, like, missing a leg missing an arm.
Yeah, so it's definitely not about the physical practice.
And so I relate back to that. Like, that was a really eye-opening opportunity for me as a yoga teacher to really see that literally any and every body can do yoga, any sort of yoga. So when people ask me, like, or start to say things, I'm not flexible, I can't do yoga, or whatever the case may be, I always try to tell them little stories. Like, yes, you can do yoga.
Yeah, that's so sweet. Do people ever ask you what style you studied or who's your teacher, that kind of thing?
Yeah. I always say yoga works method. But, yeah, people ask that. But my teacher is, I have my teacher. Sometimes.
Yeah. That's a good answer. You're good.
I think that's a great question that people ask. I actually love that because they want to know, like, where
your background.
Yeah, your background. Where did you study? Who did you study with? And I think when I check out a new teacher, I always look at where did they come from? And
it does show a certain knowledge of a bit more than
absolutely
the basic.
Yeah, like what informs the class, what informs the practice. And I think it's a great question.
How often people ask you about something else than the physical practice when they talk to you about yoga? Like a student comes to you.
Like more of yoga philosophy?
Is it 90% about the asana practice and how do I do this and how do I get there and better in this? Or do people ask you about meditation or pranayama or how...
My existing students ask me those questions, but if it's someone just like off the street that I meet who I say I'm a yoga teacher to, it's mostly physical stuff.
After classes too, I'd say about 90% are questions about asana, alignment, or am I doing this right, or am I doing that right? Maybe one comment every now and then, like, I listened to everything you said about breathing today, and it really made a difference on my mat. But that's rare. It is.
Is it less rare for you since you teach it a bit more, maybe?
Yeah, it's a little less rare. Like if there's a particular pranayama that I'm leading, I might get questions about it after, or I do teach more meditation in my class, and so it's kind of a meditation while you're in the yin poses, actually. So... I think people have maybe more of a curiosity of, I'm noticing, the monkey mind, or how do I work with that? And that's when I kind of can work with people individually on that. It's interesting, in a group dynamic to be addressing someone's difficulty sitting in meditation, because you're not seeing what's going on. Like in asana, you can see clearly, this person's struggling, or here's a way to adjust. But with meditation, you don't really know what's happening with someone.
Sometimes you can tell.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's obvious. But so I do get those questions more so. Yeah, it's a different practice.
Yeah. I think the challenge is, if we teach vinyasa and hatha classes, or classes that we may talk a bit less about the other aspects of yoga, when we talk about yoga, the big, scope of yoga, the big umbrella. If we compare yoga today to 50 or even 5,000 years ago, we're talking about totally different things, right? Today, yoga in America is a 16 billion industry, and we have 36 million practitioners. So there's going to be a lot of different option and possibilities for sure. But if we dig a little bit more into traditional definition and maybe bring it back towards what we're talking about now, it'd be interesting to see actually if it kind of all comes together at the end or if it doesn't. I have an idea, but we'll see. So literal meaning, literal translation of yoga, right? I'm sure you've heard it a million times. Most teachers have learned it. Serious students have heard it too. So we talk about to yoke, to join, union, balance, that kind of thing. I think what makes this definition challenging to keep really small is, what are we trying to bridge together? What are we trying to balance or to bring in union?
It's a great question.
So any thoughts on that?
Well, you're trying to be, it's self-awareness, knowing yourself as your true self. I mean, it's just a lot to get into. Like,
yeah. It's a loaded question.
Yeah,
it is. We can spend a lot of time here, but I think that there's this way in which, you know, we as humans have come into this place, you know, an egoic place of disconnect from our true selves, you know, where we think our mind is disconnected from our body and our heart. And so it's actually this way of bringing us back. I think of it as like coming back home to a place that we know it is essentially us. But we just, because of just life and trauma and other things, we come so far from that, and it creates disconnect. And so through asana, through meditation, through all of these different modalities and other things outside of yoga too, but can help us to come back to that place of union, yoking, merging mind, body, spirit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's my general go-to is if I were to, you know, in 30 seconds or less, you know, talk about it, it would be a union of mind, body, and spirit. And every type of yoga that I teach, whichever type of class. And like you were saying, other things that aren't yoga too, if it brings you that mind, body connection,
and
dancing, and yeah.
Is spirit for you necessarily religious? When we say mind, body, spirit?
not at all.
No. Well, it just depends on what you feel is religious or not, like what religion means to you.
I think there's a lot of really beneficial, like ritual type things involved in religion, and I think that for some people it's very, very, very helpful. But I think if it's something that creates like a negative response inside of your system, you don't have to even think about it. Like you have to figure out what's the thing that lights you up. And if it's not religion, then don't go there. So I think that it can and it cannot. It doesn't necessarily need to be either or.
Yeah, I definitely tend to be more cautious when using that word, like to spirit or divine or God. And, you know, I think everyone finds it in their own way, whatever that is. That could mean going to church. That could mean, for some people, surfing. You know, it could mean being on your yoga mat or meditation. But yeah, some way of connecting to that true place that, you know, that is.
There's like a deep stillness or a deep peace that's inside of us. And so however you can get to it is everyone has to figure out. So that's like the process of yoga to me is like the process can look like a lot of different things, but as long as you're finding that like place of peace and calm and clarity inside of you, then you're doing yoga right. It doesn't need to look any specific way.
And spirit, if it's not religion, and someone asks you, what's spirit if I don't believe in God? What can it be? It could be nature, you said, right? So that...
Yeah, I really liked what you said about, like, finding a way, like, reconnecting to that place inside yourself that... it's such a great question. Like, what is that? What does it feel like? And even, you know, if I'm talking to my therapy clients or I'm talking to my students and I ask them about true self or spirit, and sometimes they'll say, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And thinking about a client the other day, actually, and I said, when you think about, like, when you're acting or in relationship with your true self in the world or with your partner, or with your friends and family, what does that feel like? Like, what does it feel like in your body? Does it feel connected? Does it feel grounded? What does it feel like when you're disconnected from that? Or nature, or there's so many different ways.
Being able to feel all of those things without it having anything to do with religion, and calling that spirit.
Yeah.
Well, I think
anything that is... Go ahead.
So they say that this thing that we're trying to describe is impossible to describe with words.
Yeah,
so
right.
That's
it's so
the
interesting.
problem that's so hard is I try to remind students to not think about it. Like, it's not something that you're going to be able to intellectualize, but you can feel it. So, like, where do you feel it? How does it feel? Experience that, because the benefits of yoga are hard to describe. They have to be experienced.
And you were mentioning connection within yourself. What about connection outside of yourself? Can that be spirit? If it's nature, or it's any power that maybe you don't understand that's in the universe or community or family or friends, is that part of your spirit connection, in your opinion?
Fully, I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it is. It's connecting to the, the self is, rather than it being this, like, I am separate from. It's interesting. I'm just coming off this day-long nature retreat yesterday, which was about, like, connecting to, like, where do you find that reflection in nature, and about it being, it's not just that it's mine and that's here somewhere, or mine separate from yours, and again, this might not resonate with everyone, this idea of kind of, universal connection or spirit. But that, for me, that's how I feel it is, in relation to another, to nature, to myself. Kind of that reciprocal.
I was at a conference one time, and Judith Hansen-Lassiter was speaking, and she was talking about connection. And something that has always stuck with me was, she said that when we feel connected to one another, or connected to a thing or a tree or whatever it is, when we feel connected, we don't want to harm that thing or whatever it is. So the sense of when we take that, separateness away from it all, it just creates this wonderful, beautiful thing.
To me, that sounds like love.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah. Even with yourself, being really, truly connected to who you are, so you can be able to be compassionate with yourself and loving with yourself. We're so used to actually being kind of
criticizing.
Yeah, and even violent, I want to say, towards yourself.
Negative self-talk. And all of that.
And I think that comes from the place of feeling disconnected, disconnected from ourselves, disconnected from others, from the world.
Yeah.
And fear.
Also a misidentification with who you really are. Like thinking that you're your mind or your body when you're really not. You're this other thing, this awareness of that. What we were talking about, being connecting inward rather than, yes, we have a body and we have a mind, but we're neither of those things, is what the yoga practice is saying. So when you're criticizing your whatever, like long middle toe or something like that, you're not really criticizing your true self, because it's not who you are.
Yeah. That's the ego versus the true nature.
Yeah,
we hear a lot about it. We can,
Yeah, and then just to kind of bring it back to the asana practice, it's, I think what, yoga is speaking to, and why there are these asanas, which came secondary to, awareness and breath and meditation, but it's this vehicle to be able to elicit that spirit or that connection. So all these poses that we do, whether it's, just a simple child's pose or, some crazy inversion, it is this vehicle to find that that space of peace, of connection.
One of the ways that really transformed my practice was the union between being and practicing yoga. Being on the mat, being with my feelings, with my emotions, with what's going on in the body, in the mind, in my breath, rather than following the rhythm of someone else or following.
But do you think that was you just becoming more conscious in your practice?
Probably.
Yeah. The definition of yoga that that has been most helpful for me is that yoga is the process of replacing old patterns with new and more appropriate patterns, and that's by Krishnamacharya.
Yeah.
And that's just because it was easier for me to wrap my head around that than it was to wrap my head around the word union or absorption, as also I've heard samadhi described as. And I was like, where am I absorbing to? Where, like, who am I? What's going on?
Right.
But then when you think about it almost as like a process of like just looking at everything that you do in a habitual way and trying to make all of those things more conscious, like you're saying, from practicing just like going through the motions and then actually being there and doing that with consciousness and with awareness, that has what was really, really helped me the most.
That's very interesting, and it relates to another division that I have here from Bhagavad Gita, where it said yoga is a deliverance from contact with pain and sorrow. Which for me, that was one of my favorites. It's not the typical one that you hear. It's not the Yoga Sutra definition, right? Which is yoga is the restraint of the modification of the mind. And that's probably the one you'll see most often, I would say. But it doesn't talk to everybody. It doesn't speak to you necessarily.
That's why he wrote all the other sutras after that.
Exactly. That doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
Is there any other definitions that you guys carry close to heart, or?
I mean, just the simplest one for me is just like really, just coming back home.
Yeah.
Essentially, and getting out of our kind of attachment to ego state, which is where a lot of us are stuck. And I think that's the journey as humans. Is to move away from that, move back to where we started.
I guess one last thought I had on that, not so much a definition, but more about like what yoga is to me. And, it is something different right now than maybe it will be when I'm 50 or 60. And all the while, the yoga will still be with me. So while I might be focusing on certain asanas, like maybe one day being able to press into a forearm stand right now, I also need to learn my foundations, like really fully, maybe even more so than the asana. So like the breathing and the more meditative practices and more gentle, slower movements, so that when I need those things, when I'm older, I will have them. And they will be learned, efficient tools, not something new that I need to learn because I've been focusing on these hard things my whole time in yoga. But that it's something that is meant to stay with you, I think is important to know, and not so much all about, learning the asanas, although that's a part of it. But
yeah, I loved what you shared, Erica, about the just being where you are rather than like trying to get somewhere or trying to improve in something. And I'm continually reminded when I'm forced to slow down, like if I'm sick or something's going on, grieving, or whatever it is that I'm needing to really slow things down, and realizing like, oh yeah, there's just being with what's here. And sometimes that means really like slow and gentle and just not needing to necessarily like exert in a way that my body doesn't need in that moment.
Is there any of those definitions that you feel don't work with certain groups of people you might teach to? Or is it just in the way we bring it, but it's always hidden under there?
I try to sneak it in all the time.
Do you find yourself sneaking in even in a TRX kind of talking about that?
How do you do it in TRX?
Just like teaching people to listen to their body and their own self-talk. Like in both cases, in the case of like, I can't do this, or the other case, it's like, for me, it always comes back to habit. Like you see the people who habitually overdo it, or the people who habitually underdo it. So you have to kind of figure out a way to talk to both of those people in a different way, but to say the same thing. Like, what is your mind telling you right now? And then what is your body actually telling you right now? Is your body saying like, ow, my shoulder hurts? Or is it that your shoulder's fine and your mind is telling you you're not strong enough to do this? So I think that it can go both ways. It just depends on what your habits are. And I don't always teach, but sometimes I'll teach a class where, say we do like three sets of something. The first set you have to do super slow, like literally as slow as you possibly can. And that makes people like get out of their normal, whatever, path of least resistance. And actually work on the form and like be very mindful about it. And then you notice how much better everyone's form is for the next 2 rounds. So like stuff like that.
Do you find in aerial or in paddleboard there's anything different than a regular class in a studio for you?
I think perhaps I would imagine like in other teachers' classes maybe, but I really try to streamline all of the classes that I teach to have this sort of mind-body connection place. So,
But you're working a lot with fear, too.
Yeah, definitely. On the paddleboard, especially more so than in aerial, I think people are deathly afraid of falling in the water, which is so funny to me because I'm like, I'll be more inclined to do crazier things on the paddleboard because I'm like, oh, I'm just falling in the water.
Yeah.
But people get really scared about it, and I always make it optional. I won't push anybody to do something hard if they're really afraid, but we do talk about it a little bit and try to, get them out of their heads and into their bodies and know that it's fun if you fall in the water.
Yeah.
And in aerial, too, people are afraid to fall out of the hammock or go upside down.
That sounds worse to me than falling in
the water, right? But you're usually not too far off the ground. And there is this, I'll say throughout class, like, trust the hammock.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you're kicking up to a wall in a handstand, you're like, trust that the wall will be there to catch you. And a lot of it is learning to trust your body, to just trust your body. And and so we do relate it all back to just like on a regular mat class, which I think is really cool.
I find in the gyms people think they don't want to hear about the spiritual aspect of yoga or the non-fitness aspect of yoga, but as soon as I sneak it in, people after class come and will thank me about it and say, oh, I love that you said that. It's like, see?
Yeah.
You want to know about it.
Yeah, I think there's a doorway for everyone, whether they're coming to a gym or they're coming to paddleboard or they're coming to an inner yoga class. There's a doorway for people to enter something beyond just the physical practice.
I think it's cool that there are so many different types of yoga these days too, because it does offer many different doorways for people.
Yeah. It's almost as if the body experience doesn't really matter because we're all seeking the same thing in the end, and the road you're taking to get there, it's your choice. You want to do a power heated 90-minute class, or you want to do a yin therapeutic class. Doesn't matter. If at the end you're feeling better in your body, you're feeling better in your mind, you feel more connected, isn't that maybe what everybody is looking for?
Yeah,
I think so.
For sure.
So I think that's kind of our conclusion, right? Just going around the different types of yoga, different practice. In the end, maybe it's about the goal, it's about what we're seeking, and the repercussions of whatever practice you choose to do.
Right? Yeah, you just got to stick with it.
Yeah, let the yoga work.
Yeah, consistency.
Give it time.
Stay open to what it can evoke in you, what it can support,
and don't be tied to one specific style, because I remember I started a very physical practice of vinyasa flow, like super hard. And now I take Vini yoga, which is like breath based and super slow.
Oh yeah.
So like your interests will change, and just go with it.
Yeah. Yeah, the first yin class I took, I walked out of. Because I could not be in a pose for 7 minutes. It was so uncomfortable to be with my mind. And then here I am just teaching yin.
Yeah, exactly.
So what would you want students to remember or go home with if they're trying and they don't enjoy it, if they're trying and it's hard, and if they feel that maybe it's not their place to be?
Yeah, it might be hard. I mean,
other than give it time, we said that.
I always tell new students that come to the studio maybe for the first time or something to try all the different teachers that you can too. I know that as a teacher that my teachings are taken from all sorts of different teachers. So I think that's maybe something that can be helpful for newer students. And
so seek that connection.
Yeah, and I think as a teacher it's important to be giving our students options, because maybe our approach is just not going to work for someone, or it's not the right thing for them at the time. And I think there are so many options, so being able to refer them to different teachers.
So many resources out there.
So many resources, and just have them maybe try something else. And that it's not necessarily the first class they're going to go to is going to be their teacher or their practice, but showing them that there's options.
So they have to try. They have to trust the process. Maybe they have to try again and again, try different things. Yeah. They have to stick with it, give it time, and listen in, try to discover what they're actually seeking, what they need, what they want.
Yeah. What makes them happy, what makes them feel connected, and like sit with that for a second, I think is important.
And why are you coming to class?
And I say that at the beginning of classes. Lately I have been more like, what maybe our intention today is what reason you came to yoga for. You know, we all show up for different reasons. We all receive different gifts, and what are yours?
Okay, well, we could continue forever, but I think we'll wrap this up here. Thank you so much for joining me today. Before we go, let's go around the table. If people want to know more about you, they want to reach out, maybe take a class, where's the best place for them to find you? Jenna.
You could look on my website. It's jennamarynyoga.com, and that's JennaMaryn yoga yoga.com.
I'll put all the links in the show notes, so
okay,
don't worry about it.
Say that.
Yeah.
Or you could follow me on Instagram, Jenna Loves Yoga.
Great. Monique?
Yeah, you can find me on my website, MoniqueHaan.com, and that's pretty inclusive of all of my offerings, my yoga, retreats, workshops, and psychotherapy practice, somatic, body-centered psychotherapy.
Great. Cara.
And you can find all of my stuff on my website, embracewonderyoga.com, and on Instagram, too. It's Embrace Wonder Yoga.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.
Thanks, Erica.
This was so fun. I love this.
Thank you so much for listening and being part of our first episode. We have super interesting guests lined up for you, so make sure to subscribe. It would also make my day if you left a review and you shared the podcast with your friends to help people find it. I will leave instructions in the show notes to help you if you've never done that before, with all the information you need to know about our guest. And before you go, one more thing. I would love to hear your favorite definition of yoga and what it means to you. You can leave a comment below or tag me on your favorite social media platform, Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, and I'll share my favorite ones. Until next time.